First item on our agenda for today is the approval of our minutes from last meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes of last meeting? Any additions? If there are no corrections or additions, is there a motion to approve?
I'm going to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. Next item on our agenda for this evening is the consent agenda, which we have no items. Therefore, we will move directly into the regular agenda. The purpose of this meeting is to hear all pertinent testimony of those in support of and in opposition to the applications before the board. Tonight is the first of two public hearings required to approve a change in zoning. The board also considers plats. The procedure for public hearing items to be followed tonight will be: the public hearing will be opened and testimony will be heard in the following order: the applicant, staff, the general public, those in support and in opposition to the request. If you are part of a large group with a common interest, we ask that you would appoint a spokesperson rather than have each individual restate the same information. When addressing the board, please begin by stating your name and address. Try to limit your comments to 5 minutes. When all sides have spoken, the public hearing on the matter will be closed and no further public discussion will be entertained. After each public hearing is closed, the board will vote on the request. Zoning requests and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation will go forward to the second public hearing, which will be conducted by the City Council on August 13th, 2015. On tonight, on our regular agenda, item A, we consider an application, P-1505, filed by Nicholas Northcutt, Johnson and Pace, to plat approximately 3.263 acres of AB 258 PP Range Survey, TR 9, Section 4, into one lot located on Hawkins Parkway, west of 4th Street. Who here represents this application? Please come forward. State your name and address.
Nicholas Northcutt, 1201 Northwest Loop 281. I didn't necessarily have anything to say about it. I was here if you have any questions.
Okay. What's the purpose of your application to us, Mr. Northcutt?
So, subdivision plat. Subdivision plat.
Subdivision plat?
Correct.
Okay. Staff report?
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. The applicant is requesting to plat a single lot. This is part of the new development that's occurring on Hawkins Parkway. It's for the new hotel property that's under construction. As stated in the staff report, it is 3.263 acres. Fire protection, water been extended, sewer's been extended. Staff is recommending conditional approval. And the reason we're recommending a conditional approval is there's still a punch list of some items left on the infrastructure before we can formally accept that. It's basically dealing with a sewer manhole. And so with a conditional approval, it allows us to approve it with that condition. Once that condition is met, then the plat is considered approved. And so that way we don't have to wait additional time, and that's something that their contractor can take care of fairly quickly. And then once it passes and we get everything we need, maintenance bonds and so forth, then we can file the plat as being compliant with those conditions. So I would recommend, if a motion for approval, there would be a motion for approval with the conditions of meeting the punch list items on the infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission?
It's the hotel property that's currently under construction.
Okay.
On the north side.
Yes, ma'am, on the north side there.
By Good Shepherd.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was my next question. Make sure that we knew exactly which one. And as I understand it, Michael, this we approve, you're recommending that we do a conditional approval, that the
Correct.
conditions that are still outstanding would have to be met.
Correct. Those conditions have to be
Okay.
met prior to it being considered formally approved.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
And those would have to be met before the hotel opened?
Correct. They would
Before
have to have,
received a-
yes, because it's infrastructure, they wouldn't be able to file the plat, they wouldn't be
Okay.
able to get a certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? You may be seated.
Thanks, sir.
Public hearing for application 1505 is now open. Is there anyone who would come forward at this time to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who would come forward at this time to speak in opposition to it? With there being none coming forward, public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion?
Motion for approval with conditions.
Okay.
Second.
A conditional motion has been made to approve with the conditions as recommended by staff, and second. All those in favor? Say aye. Approved. Item B, a public hearing will be held to consider RP 1504 filed by Richard Henson to replat approximately 1.280 acres of lots 5 and 6, Block 7, Johnsonville subdivision into 5 residential lots located on Wesley Street. Who here represents this application?
I, Richard Henson, represent this application.
Tell us what you're doing, please, Mr. Henson.
Doing
What's
five,
your address? We need your address.
284 North Live Oak Road, Gilmer, Texas, 75644.
Okay?
Building 5, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, brick, single-family homes.
Okay. And any questions for Mr. Henson at this point? Staff report?
Chairperson, this is a request to replat those 2 residential lots into 5 lots. It is zoned single-family 4. As you can see here, our future land use map does designate this area for low-density residential, and that is consistent with that. It does comply with our comprehensive plan, therefore staff does recommend that you consider approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What is the configuration of the property going to be with the lots?
I've got a plan here that shows the street if
Oh.
you need it. Do you want me to pull a big plan?
Yeah, hold on, let me see, and for some reason that is not in there. For replat, it should have been in there. That's what they're approving. That's what they're approving is the plat. And we send
Okay. Okay. That's how I wondered how you.
Mr. Henson, you'll need to show the other commissioners that, if you would, take it around to present it.
On a
Thank
small
you.
copy. I've got another copy here as well.
This is Wesley Street.
We have a private street with a turnaround, fire code.
And those are 75 feet wide?
Yeah, and 74, 103 wide, and 150 feet deep.
And the total depth on that is 300 and,
Yeah, that's a fire code compliant
A little over
turnaround.
375. It makes sense to build a house here and have a backyard that big. Wesley Street.
Maybe. Maybe the city.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Shirley, did you say that we do have a copy of what we were just presenting?
Yes, it was in your packet.
Okay, okay.
We just didn't
We
have it
just
in the
didn't have a slide
overhead.
of it?
Yeah, I apologize for that. I'm filling in for Angela tonight, so.
Okay.
And you're doing a very good.
Okay, with that being done in that fashion, I'm going to ask did anyone have any questions or comments from what we were just presented, since we didn't necessarily get it recorded? If anyone had any pertinent questions, I think, or comments, we need to.
Question I asked him, that seemed to always come up in our discussion, but when something presented to is on his driveway putting in, did he, was it considered for as the width for fire trucks?
Yes, it does. It is a fire code compliant private street with a fire code compliant turnaround.
Okay.
And the developer maintains the street? That's a question, not a statement. Or is that a
Yes, and subject to, you know, the lots are available for sale. So there'll be some covenants as far as future ownership responsibility of that between the lot owners. Basically, a lot owner association will be responsible for that.
And is there any fencing planned on
There
the
is.
backside
There
of
is.
those residential areas? Because they back up to...
Yeah, we'll do privacy fenced backyards, which will make the entire side basically privacy fenced along the back.
Is that the backside only, not the front side?
No fencing on the front, no. Well, I mean, privacy fence up to each side of the house, like in front of the air conditioners, but just to the property line and around the perimeter of the backyard. So they'll have fenced backyards, basically.
Yeah. And as you can see by the aerial with this neighborhood, most of the lots are significantly shallower than these two lots are. And over the years, we've had, you know, those lots are a little larger than what people want to maintain today. And so it's presented challenges. You know, we've had some newer construction down here I say over the last few years, but a few years to me, it's like 8 or 10 years now. So, but they're fairly new, and you can see how they had to work around the total depth. So this is just one way to facilitate developing these lots in a manner that is fitting the market with just a shallower lot.
Did you indicate what size houses these would be?
They're approximately 1,500 square feet living, heated and cooled.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Henson? You may be seated.
Thank you.
The public hearing for item 1504 is now opened. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this application? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Buddy Stewart. I live at 4112 Wesley. Apparently, you all aren't aware of what's going on out there. He doesn't need your approval. He's already framing up his house. I mean, he's got pads out there. Everything's ready. He's hooked up. You all just now finding out about it? If you all let him, he'll just keep on going. Is that all right with you?
Mr. Shirley, what do we know about where the status of this is?
We did issue some building permits out there for the front house, because without the replat, the single house would still be allowed on that lot, which is what we traditionally do. And also issued permits for foundation onlys at his discretion, you know, if this was not approved. Under state law with platting laws, if a plat complies with city standard, really the only option that Planning and Zoning Commission has, they're obligated to approve. Unless it does not comply, then they have the opportunity to deny it. But basically, it's a rubber stamp approval. And so we did issue some building permits for that, like I said, for that front house. And then he did take on the foundation onlys at his own risk.
And he's in compliance with the replat qualifications
Yes, sir.
and requirements.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Stewart, I hope that you took into consideration what the staff was just telling us about this.
I hope you would consider what I'm telling you about it.
Okay, what are you telling me, sir?
He's gone in there, stripped it to every vegetation's gone. He's got cement platforms for his houses. He's framing up on the first one. And now he's coming to you, asking you to replat the addition.
Yes, sir. And unless we find that he's in any kind of non-compliant sense on replatting, then he will be able to replat it. And yes, it's not the most ideal situation, but it is what it is.
Is that standard, though? Do you just go ahead and do what you want to do and then come down here and y'all rubber stamp it?
Under certain circumstances, to be honest with you, yes.
Even though there's something wrong with the deal?
What is wrong with it? That's what we want to hear from you. What's wrong?
First place, it's on a slope.
Okay?
Sewer line is going to be a problem. The last house is in the flood zone. There's only one way in. It's a driveway, it's not a street. Street, can't put a street in there and build houses.
Okay?
I'm just surprised that all this has gone on and all of a sudden you're supposed to approve it. I don't get that.
So you're saying that there's that you foresee a problem with the sewer lines? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyhow,
Are there other concerns you have about it?
it's one house per lot. Well, it started. He wants to put 5 on 2 lots. He wants a street, but it's not a street, it's a driveway.
He wants to
last
put 5 houses on 1 lot,
2 lots.
on 2 lots? And what was it about the street?
The street is not a street, it's just
There's-
a driveway. If you
no
put
street.
5 houses in there, it's a driveway.
Okay.
That last house is gonna have a hard time with the sewage, because it's downhill, not uphill. I'm surprised that the city has hooked up and put the water, and hooked up the water line. I mean, he's ready to go. He's got the framing going up on the first house already. I presume that that's something that is possible.
Yes, and under our planning procedures, their first step is to submit a pre-submission proposal that outlines their project plan. That's where staff has an opportunity to review it for compliance with city standards for lot size, lot dimension, drainage, water and sewer connectivity and availability, and then also accessibility with private streets, driveways, and so forth. And that plan has been approved for a number of months. The water and sewer, I believe, is installed, and we're waiting on the street to be installed. What they're wanting to do is get in once approved and pour the slabs, and then come back and pour the street and let it all cure, instead of having to drive concrete trucks on a newly poured street. And so it's more of a timing issue. But as far as our plating process goes, generally, we see many times that plat approval comes after a subdivision is approved and actually built. The final plat, the approval from the commission is kind of the last step, and the way state law is written is basically is a rubber stamp on that process. As long as it meets city standards, it's more or less an administrative review and approval of infrastructure plans, and that's just the way the process is. There's very different from zoning, where we have a little more latitude to approve or deny zoning. If a subdivision meets our requirements, we're obligated to approve it.
And it is a street, not a driveway, because you've got fire truck capabilities of going into
Correct.
it.
It will be. It may look very similar to a shared driveway, but it's a private street. It won't have your traditional cul-de-sac turnaround because it's not that large. but it will have a fire code compliant turnaround, which our subdivision ordinance allows for private streets. And so this is a typical process where we generally see subdivisions built. Now, we generally don't see the houses built, but we do and have for many years when we have plat approval in queue awaiting P&Z approval and filing. We do issue a single permit because it's an existing lot, so it's a buildable lot as it sits. And so that builder can go ahead and start with construction, especially with the weather that we've had, having kind of an opening for that. And then they take it upon themselves to risk the others, even though technically the commission is obligated to approve it. I wouldn't recommend that because we would be obligated to a lawsuit.
Can we find out if we have any other speakers in opposition? Thank you, sir.
And subdivisions are very different from zoning. I mean, P&Z, that is one of the authorities that P&Z has delegated to them, is that approval, and it does require a public hearing, but at the end of the day, P&Z is obligated to approve it unless there's cause under city ordinance that it doesn't comply, and then you have the authority to deny it.
But if we approve it for one house on one lot?
It will have one house on one lot.
Right now, it's one lot. It's two lots.
Correct.
What if we approve it on one house on one lot as sits?
That's not what they've submitted.
Well, but that's, this is wrong. I mean, you're using me as a rubber stamp, something that, I can't go out and start a house on a permit without coming down and getting everything ready and, how do you borrow money for that? I mean, there's something not kosher here, man. I'm sorry, it just don't feel right. I mean, I've been in this for 40 years. There's something not squirrely here. This just don't sound right to me, Michael,
Can we get the rest of our speakers? Let's let this gentleman speak. Your name and address, please, sir.
First of all, good evening. My name is Keithan Ross. I own that property with the house that's lots 7 and 8, if I'm not mistaken. I've lived there for 19 years. I own that house. I've owned it for 10 years.
And what's your address?
4104 Wesley Street, which is directly south of those two. Come this way. I think that's my house below the grid, the striped grid there. It's either my house or my shop, one or the other. Anyway, those houses will be facing my house and my backyard. And the only thing that divides it now is a chain link fence. And I don't see how it's in compliance with the road that's gonna go down through there, which, as the man was saying earlier, I don't see how it passes code, because that'll be a small street. Well, maybe it does, I don't know. But my problem with it is the front of those houses will be so close to my backyard, all the way back to the back property line. And actually, my fence is maybe 2 or 3 feet over towards his property on the back side, the back corner. And I don't have anything against the man. He's developing, which is great, but that's 2 lots. And when I bought that house, I mean, that's what they told me, you got 2 lots here, you got a little room, but I only have 1 house on both of my lots. And putting 5 facing my house, and which I don't have a privacy fence, I guess I'll have to put up one. My house is for sale right now just because of that reason. And I've had 5 people come and they asked me about the development, and each one of them said, no, I won't buy it because of that reason. And I said, well, I can't do anything about that. I didn't know that this was not approved yet, because like he said, they start building. They got 5 concreted, everything's done. and he started going up. So, I mean, I don't know what I can do about it other than come here. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, you know, whatever decisions you make, I'll have to live with it. But I'm not in agreement with it. I don't have anything against him. I don't even know him. But I think if you are going to build houses, this should maybe be 2 houses there. And you spoke about how deep it is. It's a little deep, but it's 1.28 acres. My 2 lots are the same. And I have a house and a shop. I have 2 shops on the back side of mine. And I think it's just enough room for that. But whatever you all decide to do, I'll have to live with it. But I don't think 5 houses should go there. I don't know if it's bringing my property value down. I don't know. But they're new, so I guess it probably won't. But anyway, I appreciate your time, and that's all I have to say.
Mr. Roth, you
Yes,
said
ma'am.
your property is the same depth as this property?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And that 5th house is way back there. So like he's talking about the sewer system, I have no idea because it slopes down. From front to back, it slopes and has a pretty good grade slope to it. So I don't know about the sewage. I have no idea. Mine works fine. But I'm in the front portion of my lot, so both of my lots.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Is
Appreciate
there
it.
anyone else speaking in opposition? Michael, what size are these lots again? Restate that for us. We're going to have 5 lots of what size?
They are 0.26 of an acre, which meets the SF4 requirements. They are 74 foot wide.
74 foot wide by,
By 150, now that includes the road area, but general lots are 100 foot deep, so when you take that road out of it, I mean, it's a traditional SF4 lot.
okay,
What's the road width? Is it 20 or?
No,
20?
50.
so it meets the qualifications as far as
Absolutely.
the size of lot for
Yes,
it? Okay. There is no notification process for plating, correct?
There is for replats. For residential replats, we're required to hold a public hearing and notify property owners.
Okay, so property owners all receive notification, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, seems like Mr. Stewart, Mr. Roth, it seems that, you know, we've got 2 issues here. We've got, first of all, the process, that there is some concern about the process itself. And the process is a process that's kind of been dictated, that we don't have control over. But there's also the whole issue of, is this a good deal or not? I mean, is this a good development? Are these lots going to be big enough? Are the houses going to, you know, be big enough? Is it a good development? So as I see it, there are 2 things that that we're dealing here with, Mr. Henson.
I have a question.
Sure.
I was going to ask Mr. Stewart, because he made a statement when he bought the property over, when he moved in. He stated it's supposed to be 1 home. It was stated 1 home per lot. And now we're going to 5 on 1. So apparently there's nothing written on the restriction, on the deed itself for us, any kind of restrictions.
We've not been presented with any deed restrictions that limit the future development of property. Generally, if they, restrictions say 1 home per lot, it doesn't preclude them from further subdividing that. And this development will have 1 home on 1 lot. Now, it's not the existing lots that will be new lots. We have seen some subdivisions that say you cannot further develop or further divide than what's already there. And if that language was there, then they could not further develop it. But this will be a single family, single home per lot. In this process, generally, we see developments come before the commission one of two ways. We have two tracks for plat approval. Track 1, which is a post-construction approval, where you come into to the city, get your plans approved, get your infrastructure approved, you go build it, and then you come back in and get P&Z to approve a subdivision that's already built. And in a lot of cases, we've allowed a single home to be built within that subdivision for weather. A lot of times it's driven by the parade of homes, because without that subdivision plat being filed, it's still a lot of record, which would still allow for a single home construction. And so that's what we've done here to try to help out with weather and try to be developer friendly. And but this is one of those where they came in, got their plans approved and built it. They haven't finished the road, but we do have a letter of credit on file for that. And as I mentioned earlier, the reason for that was just logistically. They wanted to do all the slab pourings first and then pour the road and let it cure, and then kind of work their way back on their framing. So, it does fall in line with how we typically do, one of the choices of plat approval.
And just for clarification, it meets all the state requirements as far as what needs to be done to move forward.
Correct.
I know one is a commercial, one's a residential, but how does this differ from our first item that we approved?
Very similar. They came in, submitted their pre-submission proposal. It complied. They got their infrastructure plans approved to extend water and sewer to facilitate construction on that lot. We issued building permits, and then once the installation of infrastructure was complete, where we could assign easements, and that's traditionally why we do plat approval at the end. So if there's any fluctuation, which we see from time to time, we don't have to go back and amend easements because it's a little more difficult. And in this case, there's still a punch list items that needs to be finished before we can formally accept and file, but they're requesting plat approval post-construction.
I can understand the gentleman's concern about having the houses or the street rather in his backyard. Would there be any reason that we couldn't require a privacy fence between there? Or is that not done?
Yeah, I don't know the legalities of conditioning plats with restrictions like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have that authority. It's different than zoning. Zoning, we do have the ability to add conditions to safeguard development when we're talking about land uses. But in platting, the land use is already there. They're complying with the approved zoning and with our already established ordinances. We generally don't require screening from residential to residential. And there's
Looks like
many-
there are equally small lots right nearby there, as far as the lot size goes.
Sure. And there's many instances in town where we have intersections where there may be a corner lot that is significantly deeper that has houses across the street from them. They may have a little larger street or maybe a little bit more room, but our ordinances do allow for this.
Any other questions or comments? As I was saying, I think that there are two things here. I think that there's the process, and then I think there's the development. And what I would really kind of like to see happen on this thing, Mr. Henson and Mr. Shirley, is perhaps we could, Mr. Shirley, you could perhaps you could get with Mr. Henson and Mr. Stewart, Mr. Ross, and we could have a meeting and kind of explain to them exactly what's happening and what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Complied with every code and every regulation. of the
Yes,
city of Longview.
and
I
you are,
have,
you are, sir.
and I'm asking at this time that you approve my plat.
Okay. Public hearing,
Excuse me.
Go
Sir,
ahead.
Would you be willing to consider the neighbor that has
No.
the fence issue,
No.
meeting him
His
halfway?
fence is on my property. I'm not going to make him move it.
Understood. It's going to have
But
to
I've
be moved.
complied with everything.
Would you consider,
I have thousands of dollars tied up in this property because I followed the rules and got my pre-submission plat approved. I've done everything right. It complies. I'm asking now that you approve it.
aside from right, would you consider,
No,
as a neighborly gesture,
no,
to work with him on the
I
fencing?
will not. I have nothing against the gentleman, don't know him, but I know this project complies, and that's all I'm here for.
Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion? We need a motion either to approve or deny.
I would add one thing. If there is no motion, then the board chooses to take no action, then the plat would be considered automatically approved in 30 days.
Thank you.
You said that by law, we need to follow the state, if all the requirements are there for the state, that really we have to go along with it, right?
Correct, Texas Local Government Code, and that's why our subdivision ordinances allow us to issue infrastructure permits and allow them to build infrastructure and essentially build the subdivision prior to plat approval, because it gives that authority to administratively to approve that, and basically, as long as they're not applying for any variances, then your choices for are to approve that.
Why can't we make them stay on one lot? They've got 2 lots. Why can't we put a house on each lot now? Why do we have to approve 5 lots? 5
Because
houses.
the single family 4 zoning has a minimum lot size, and his proposal,
What's the maximum lot sizes for an SF4?
there's no maximum.
So what's the problem?
It's
He
very
can still
different.
build his house.
Sure, it's very different than zoning, where we don't have an opportunity to think more conceptually like that. We have to take action on what he's presented with us tonight. And
Well, the way I look at it, Michael, he pulled it over on the city, and the city agreed with it, and we have no say-so in this. We're just up here as figureheads right now, and this is not what we're supposed to be doing. And we should have been notified of this months ago before this even started, that this was going to be happening. And we would have probably not had a problem with it, but my problem is that the city fell down on this. You fell down on this.
I did not fall down.
didn't
We
let us know
followed
about
state,
this.
we followed state law. We
Gentlemen,
followed city
gentlemen.
ordinance.
We need to have a motion to either approve or deny this, or I'm just going to pass on it for lack of anything.
Because it's going to go back and
You-
be
you
approved in
haven't-
30 days.
We need to either approve it or deny it at this point.
Or take no action. And then,
After 30 days.
well, under state law, 30 days from the date that he submitted it, P&Z has to take action on it. And you're obligated to approve it because it complies with our ordinances. So if you choose not to approve it, 30 days from the date he submitted it, then it would become automatically approved.
If we deny it,
You don't really have the choice of denial. I mean, I guess you could, but that's a lawsuit with the city. And I would recommend that you not take that action. It's really,
We can
for all
just take
practical
no
purposes,
action.
not an option.
We can take no action, we can approve, or we can deny.
And then it goes to city council, and they still have the option, right?
No,
No?
P and Z is the
Okay.
governing
Notified.
body for
right.
plat approval.
What?
No action. Let's just move on.
For lack of a motion, we take no action on this item. Okay, let's move on to item number C. Public hearing will be held to consider application Z-1514 filed by Nicholas Northcutt, Johnson and Pace, requesting a rezone from agricultural A to heavy commercial C2 for 0.315 acre portion of abstract 117 S. Jackson Survey, TR 3, 1201 and 1202, located at 3661 Estes Parkway. Who here represents this application? Okay, what is your application doing, please, Mr. Northcutt?
This is just a basic rezone. Our client's property is heavy commercial, his neighbor's property is agriculture. They did a little, basically swapped the hatched property with the, it's that little square to the southwest. Just did a swap there, so he wants the hatched property that he just got to match the rest of his property as heavy commercial.
Okay, staff report.
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. The applicant is requesting a rezone from agriculture to heavy commercial C2 to build a future hotel on. The majority of the applicant's property is currently zoned C2, and he's just asking to zone the remainder to be consistent. Estes Parkway is a principal arterial roadway, which is appropriate for this type of use. These are high-capacity urban roads with primary function is to deliver traffic between lower classification roadways and freeways at the highest level of service possible. Access management is essential to avoid traffic congestion and delays caused by turning movements for vehicles entering and exiting driveways, and staff finds the proposed zoning change is consistent with the surrounding uses and the comprehensive plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? No questions at this time? Mike, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Public hearing for application Z-1514 is now open. All those who would speak in favor, please come forward. Anyone speaking in opposition, please come forward. There being none, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve as read.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Z-1514 stands approved. Item D, public hearing will be held to consider application PD 15-08 filed by Mark Patel requesting to rezone Lot 1, Block 1, the Hamptons of Longview from Planned Development General Retail Mixed Use, PD 11-07 to Planned Development General Retail for a hotel located at 1125 East Hawkins Parkway. Who represents this application?
Good evening. I'm Brian Capps with Capco Engineering, 13044 County Road 192, Tyler, Texas. I'm representing Mark Patel on this property. Obviously, I think you figured it out. He wants to build another hotel in town. It's a good site. A lot of good hot development in this area, and I think we can fit a hotel on there. We've been back and forth with this site plan specific zoning that we're dealing with, and we have addressed Angela's comments, I think, to her satisfaction. So really, I'm kind of here for any questions you might have, but we think it's a good project, and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Any
y'all.
questions? Staff report.
The applicant is requesting to amend PD 11-07 Plan Development General Retail Mixed Use to Plan Development General Retail to allow for a 4-story hotel without a restaurant. The plan development site plan proposes a 4-story hotel that will be approximately 12,900 square feet. The site will have a total of 96 parking spaces. The hotel will also have a monument sign not to exceed 150 square feet in size and 10 feet in height. The applicant has provided a preliminary landscape plan which will be reviewed further through the site plan process. Through this process, the applicant will meet all the City of Longview minimum standards. Hawkins Parkway is a minor arterial, which is appropriate for this type of development as long as access management is followed. Little bit about this area. As you may remember, the extension of Hawkins Parkway that started in 2012 was primarily geared for, and the plan development was established to for independent living and retirement-related active adult fitting in with our retirement community designation. So all of the things that we're seeing develop out here will be supportive of that. We've got the nursing care. We've got just general apartments that could, if they choose to, transition, or family members that want to live nearby other family members that are living in one of these either independent or assisted living facilities. Having the hotel nearby will facilitate people that want to visit. It's just allowing for all the aspects of the residents of what this is geared towards to be served. And as we'll see with some future development that's going to occur, some uses that will sustain that as well. So it is consistent with what this was intended for, to support that retirement lifestyle, retirement community type, and it is consistent with all of our requirements. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Do we know the name of the hotel?
Holiday Inn Express.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There be no questions. Public hearing for PD 15-08 is now open. Anyone like to speak in support, please come forward at this time. Any? Anyone who would come to speak in opposition? There being none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a motion?
Motion for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second that PD 15-08 be approved. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we move on to agenda item E. A public hearing will be held to consider application PD 15-09 filed by the City of Longview requesting to create a college-university overlay district within South Main Historic District Plan Development Zone, located south of South Street, east of High Street, north of College Street, and west of Center Street, all of Block 208, Finch Addition, and all of Block 207, Original Town. Who represents this application?
I can speak on this. This is a city-initiated overlay district. As you can see from the zoning map, this is the block that is represented. Many of you may not be aware, but that this is part of a larger district bounded by South Street to the north, High Street to the west, Green Street, and then Nelson Street to the south. It's called the South Main Historic Neighborhood. It's an overlay district. And this was done in the 80s because this is one of our primary historical neighborhoods that saw significant growth south of downtown and really was the kind of that first neighborhood. The purpose of the district originally was to kind of protect the neighborhood from the influx of commercial development that was occurring on the perimeter. And so the overlay district that's in place did allow for commercial development on the perimeter, but did kind of protect the interior of the area. And we do have several significant historical structures that are still standing in this area. I think a couple of them are at least 3, I think, are registered Texas Historic Landmarks, and 1 or 2 that are National Register properties, so it's a very significant district. With that being said, that's a little bit about with what's there existing. The purpose for this overlay district, kind of without just reading out of the staff report that y'all have had an opportunity to look at, kind of started about a year and a half ago. Kilgore College started looking at their expansion plans for Longview, and they have purchased some property across South Street and expanded and started looking at their future needs and the students that they serve. And really the only place for them to go and to create a campus, which, you know, it's a campus, but they're trying to create an identity and a local campus through this project, would be to, you know, to kind of take over the block. And with the existing South Main district guidelines, before properties can be absorbed and redeveloped if they have existing structures, those properties have to be offered for sale to try to be reused, and they have to be offered, depending on their value, they have to be offered for sale for either 6 months or a year before we can allow them to demolish those for new construction, because we really want to try to preserve the neighborhood. And, you know, if you've driven the neighborhood, there's not one prevailing architectural style. That's what's so significant about it, is that it's comprised of numerous architectural styles. However, that is burdensome when we start talking about expanding our higher education on this footprint. So, as I said, about a year and a half ago, we started talking with Kilgore College about the best way to help them expand. And rather than just try to, rezone out and just kind of create a standalone campus, we felt that it was more important to kind of bridge the gap of this historical neighborhood, South Longview and downtown, to create an overlay district and try to do something that's not going to take away from the neighborhood. And they have gone through an extensive kind of long-range planning exercise, and we're not submitting that tonight, but we'll be submitting that in the future. And they have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to do that, to be a part of this community and to be a part of that neighborhood, and not do something that's going to take away from the historical character. And so our comprehensive plan, through that exercise and process, they designated this block as a college and university district. And we say that because it's not just Kilgore College that could locate here. You know, they may have an opportunity in the future to partner, and many of other college and universities have those partnerships. So this is just an opportunity for us to expand our higher education offering. What we had to look at, and we've already submitted this to our Preservation Commission, and they've been involved from the very beginning, kind of talking about, the potential of losing some residential structures that have some architectural significance within the district. But looking at the benefits that we get with the expansion of higher education and how that kind of mirrors what preservation provides our community, we felt this was equally, if not more important, and felt this was the right way to do that. So we're asking you to approve this overlay within the district. And attached there was a handout, and I won't go all the way through all the details, but that's before you. But what it does do that the district does not give us currently, that most plan developments have, is that site plan approval in the current district is administrative, where most plan developments have to come before P&Z and go through city council. So we're enacting that for this overlay. So that way it ensures that this is not just a City of Longview, this is not just a Kilgore College, but this is a partnership, and that they're working, and we have oversight as well to make sure that this project does what is intended to help grow the Kilgore College and create a campus, and also to be a catalyst and an anchor for redevelopment of South Longview, this neighborhood, and also tying it into downtown as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just curious, who initiated this request? Kilgore College come to you?
Kilgore College came to us about 1.5 years ago and said, you know, we want to expand our campus, and we know that with the historic district, that creates a lot of hurdles and issues. And so they started sharing with us what their ultimate plan, instead of trying to do like a next year kind of plan and just piecemeal it. We said, well, what is your overall plan? And so we started through that kind of master planning process to determine what their needs were and how to make that fit and work within the neighborhood. And so that's brought us to this point of determining what their intent is, to be a part of the neighborhood and not take away from the historical, but kind of blend in with it and be an anchor for it. We feel is an appropriate opportunity to marry those two together.
So basically, they're sitting right there on the corner of South Street and Cotton, or what is that, Green?
Yeah, it's high.
High Street.
South and High Street.
South and High Street.
The
So that's the old Sears building. They own all
Yes.
that already.
Correct.
So they're wanting to take all the way down into College in.
Yes, they currently.
And you're wanting us to take away what was put in place in '86 by Lou Galaxy.
We're wanting you to look at what today, what we're faced with,
I
challenges
mean, I don't have a
today.
problem with it. That's just what you want us to do.
Yes, and we've had, it's not been an easy road. I mean, because
No,
like you
I
say,
mean,
you know,
it's a
the
good deal, I
neighborhood's,
think.
the neighborhood's very important. You know, historic preservation is very important. We're very new with it. We haven't had a preservation commission very long.
What does Asbury House and all that across the street, have they had any input in any of this?
They've been notified with this. We notified within a 200-foot radius, and we've not had, we've had a comment or two, and I don't think they're here tonight, so I think it's been positive. You know, it's getting to the point you mentioned, this is the old Sears building, but Kilgore College has been there long enough. They're kind of rewriting the history that there's a lot of
Yeah,
people don't realize. They just think that's the Kilgore College Longview campus.
I think it's a good deal. I mean,
And it's
So-
always been in the historical district anyway.
Yes.
The existing structure. We're
Yes,
talking
ma'am.
about expansion. Okay.
so if they acquire most of the property, most of the structures will come down sooner or later.
One of the things that we've written in here is, you know, we'd like to see those structures preserved. Obviously, it's probably not going to happen in place because I don't think with their plans that they can do adaptive reuse, unfortunately. But I mean, that's just the nature of it. So part of what we've asked in this ordinance is that they have to offer the structures for sale, I believe for 45 days, for an opportunity to relocate them and preserve them. You know, our ultimate goal is to preserve structures. It's best to preserve them in their historical context, but if we can't and we can preserve them elsewhere, that's still very important. So, but then it also gives them an opportunity, you know, because Kilgore College is its own, you know, entity and has its own set of politics and everything like every other organization. And, you know, they've, and I'll let them speak in a moment, but you know, one of the issues they've had, this is not in their taxing district, so that presents challenges for their growth of the campus as well. And I believe their board has dedicated some substantial funds and made an effort to put into this campus, and so this would allow them to do that. And I feel it's a partnership, because it's us partnering with them to say, we want you in Longview, we want you to grow, and the types and I'll let them speak to the types of students that they're going to be targeting with their expansions, and it will benefit Longview because that's who they're listening to as far as the programs that they're trying to expand here. And although that doesn't meet the intent of historic preservation, it meets a local need that is equally, if not more important.
Additional questions or comments? Okay. We'll now open the public hearing on this application. Anyone here additionally to speak in favor, please come forward at this time. Give us your name and address.
Julie Fowler. My home address is 1512 Garner Lane here in Longview. My work address is 300 South High. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer at Kilgore College here in Longview. And you can obviously note that I'm very excited about this because I got out of the gate a little early a few moments ago. This has been a dream of mine. I have worked at Kilgore College only here in Longview since 1986. Began as a teacher, eventually moved up to the position of executive dean. I am dedicated to economic development through education, particularly economic development through education that Kilgore College offers here in Longview through career and technical education and workforce programs. As Mr. Shirley indicated, it is a politically awkward situation, and that defines my job because our Board of Trustees represent constituents, none of whom are in Longview, Texas. But let's face it, Longview, Texas gives Kilgore College many, many students. And I think that we serve a great purpose being here in Longview. And not only are there students who live in Longview, but the majority of our students work in Longview. So to have the college close to those people is very important. We went to our Board of Trustees, I believe, 2 months ago, and it was probably one of the greatest days of my life that 100% of our board voted to allow us to proceed with property purchase in Longview. And to me, that was a show of good faith that they wanted us to expand here in Longview and wanted to be partners in Longview. Before we went to them, at Mr. Shirley's request, we hired an architectural firm, not that he asked us to do that, but he asked us for a comprehensive plan of what we intended to do. We hired an architectural firm here locally and have a beautiful master plan that keeps the historic nature and flavor of the area and makes a campus that will allow us to create more programs that will train our workforce. To give you an example, we have started meeting with the local contractors and business people to start a pipe fitting and plumbing program. If you have ever needed a plumber lately, you know that sometimes they can be hard to find. And the master plumbers of this area say, we need to have this type of training. That is one of the things that we plan. Our laboratory could be South Longview. I have always wanted to start a construction technology program. Once again, our laboratory could be South Longview, and we could be instrumental in helping to rebuild South Longview. I appreciate your hearing me, and I want you to know that we're going to do everything we can to blend in with our current historic district if you so approve this. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Flower.
Thanks.
Anyone else? There being no others, the public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve PD 15-09.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve PD 15-09. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is approved. Let's see. Okay. Item number F, public hearing will be held to consider M 15-02, amending the City of Longview future land use map from medium-density residential MDR to retail RET located on the east side of High Street, south of Marion Drive, north of Jewel Drive. Mr. Shirley?
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. This is an amendment to our future land use map, which is a component of our comprehensive plan. And I apologize, but be reading Angela's staff report, and it's a little wordy, but we'll get through it. The future land use map is intended to serve as a guide in establishing appropriate mixes and intensities of land use throughout the city. It is not the intent of the future land use map to identify exact use on a parcel-by-parcel basis. Furthermore, it is not a zoning map. However, it does have a close relationship with the zoning map in that it is used in part to determine the appropriateness of zoning requests. The future land use map must remain flexible, being changed and updated to meet both new policies and changes in development trends and patterns. The Planning Department is requesting to reclassify the area along the east side of High Street, south of Marion Drive, and north of Jewel Drive from medium-density residential to retail. And as you may remember, through our comprehensive planning process, we talked a lot about how Longview has developed in more of a strip type of development trend. And we've kind of changed gears a little bit with our new thought process in terms of more of a nodal style of development. And that's great when we're talking about, starting from scratch in areas that are undeveloped. And some of what the land use map amendments that were proposed by our consultant did were to kind of go back to that mindset. I believe this area previously under the past future land use map was designated for retail type development. It was changed, but as we evaluated the corridor, most of the corridor didn't change. So instead of all of that changing to fit into more of this nodal style of redevelopment, really only one piece was affected. And so, as I mentioned, looking at updating it when policies change or development trends and patterns change. Although this was just adopted at that time, there was very little interest in redevelopment opportunities. This area has some medium density residential across the street, and from a zoning standpoint, there's retail zoning across the street. There's some retail all up and down High Street. And, we had a potential developer look at that and say, I'd like to, develop some retail. And if you so choose to approve the change, and council does as well, we'll probably have a rezone request for development opportunity there. But with Buckner's plan to do, and I believe they just submitted permits today for their new project there with the investment by the school district there, this area is seeing kind of a renewed effort for development. And, although it's not in that nodal perspective, it's around a node of development. When we talk about nodal development, you should set a cross-section, a node of where you have a major intersection. But this is still somewhat of a node of primary generators, the school, the apartments. And so with what they'll probably be proposing for retail use, will complement that. So we just felt that it was appropriate to kind of fix that back to what we feel it should be. And would be happy to answer any questions.
You don't have any sense of the type of retail or anything further on that?
I do. I don't know that I want to share that because they haven't submitted anything. Okay. With that being said, with this change, any kind of retail development would be appropriate there and the way our zoning categories are established. You know, we generally where we see issues is with commercial zoning because it's so broad. Generally, retail is narrowed down in uses that are appropriate along thoroughfares and adjacent to residential areas because they're low enough in intensity. But probably going to see, you know, either some kind of office, retail, convenience store, probably along that line.
Any other?
With that lot, with that potential business coming in, you know, that backside, the next street over is all residential.
Sure.
And there's kind of a buffer right now, little trees, but they're right there. So I would like to ask, please take consideration of that.
Sure, and this is just kind of talking conceptually. This is saying that we're taking one of the hurdles out of the way for them to ask for a rezone. If they were to ask for a rezone for retail, it's still conceptual. It'd be any of those uses allowed. They don't have to tell us what they're doing. We can ask. You know, at that point, we would need to be comfortable with anything that's allowed in retail. Or the commission could ask for a planned development and say, you know, it's too sensitive of an area. We want to make sure that what you say you're going to do, you're going to do. You know, in this area, in the past, we have had requests for rezone where Buckner's going in that area for a convenience store. There were other issues at that time that prevented that from moving forward. You know, but this is the way it's slated now for medium density residential would be some kind of higher density residential, whether that be triplexes, apartments, something along those lines is what it's slated for now. So, and that is very appropriate. It would still be allowed as an allowable use under this land use designation as well, but it just opens that door back up for them to ask for a rezone for something else. And then we would have another opportunity to determine whether or not that's appropriate.
Well, those trees through there do offer a nice buffer, and
Sure.
I understand your concern.
If there are no other questions or comments, public hearing is now open for M15-02. Anyone wishing to speak in support, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? No one coming forward. Public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve as read.
Second. It's been moved and second to approve M15-02. All those in favor? Aye. M15-02 stands approved. Staff update?
Put me on the spot. I'm trying to know. I believe everything from the previous cycle was approved.
All right, sir. Citizen comment? There being none, this meeting stands adjourned.